Uh, Jerry and Stephen, can you start by just talking about the decision you had at 17 with Lamb and Chase on, and was that unexpected to some extent to see Lamb as part of that decision that you had at number 17?
Yeah, Stephen, why don't you start it off for us?
Okay. Yes, David. I think that was really surprising to us to see CD sitting there, and we went through a lot of mock drafts, and I can tell you he wasn't a part of any of them, just because we felt like he was a top 10 player in this draft, and we'd never see him. So at the end of the day, it's always a challenge not to feel a little stress on what you need. But at the end of the day, we got really good, smart people in the room, and they were, very convincing. And I think Jerry heard everybody out, and the right thing to do is always pick the best football player, and that's what we did today.
I'll add to that, David. We probably this method of preparing for this draft and evaluating these players, as Stephen has said earlier, there's going to be a lot of what the league and the business of evaluating players. There's going to be a lot we've learned from doing it with under these types of circumstances that I think will carry over for the long haul in evaluating and making decisions with players. And having said that, this is a classic case. We had him as our sixth pick on the board. And we had known from a lot of discussions with Mike that he really thought with this draft class of receivers that we ought to come out of here with an outstanding player that we could use certainly as our second receiver in the wire outside, but had a lot of flexibility going at all positions. We never thought one that of Lamb's caliber would be there, and of course we had been going over with our rehearsals. We've been going over Chesson and his availability. We had looked at corners. We had looked at this other positions that were maybe more that we probably do need to pay attention to, but we've got a lot of draft left. But at the end of the day, Lamb made the decision. He was good enough to take our pick above other guys we could have picked and felt very good about.
All right, we'll go to Jory.
Thanks for your time, guys. Going back to that defense, now that you have selected Lamb, where do you see your most pressing need on defense, and how does that factor into what you need to do tomorrow?
Coach?
Who's the question for? Is that for me?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think like anything, just really building off of what both Jerry and Stephen just addressed. I think it's important, and this is a great example of it, is to just stay true to the board. I think the staff has done an incredible job putting this board together, and just having the discipline to keep drafting the best player. So, and with that, as far as the focus on defense versus offense, we'll just let that work itself out, and we all understand the positions that we want to hit. But I think the board's going to, I feel really good. The board's going to lay out nicely for us.
Go to Todd Archer.
Mike, can you talk about what you liked about Lamb in this process, getting to know him, and how you see him fitting in with Amari and Michael Gallup?
Well, he's a dynamic football player. I think the fact that he carries an alpha status, the ability to play what I would refer to as all four positions, both inside and outside, the ability to move around. He's, create favorable matchups. That's, as we move into this upcoming season, we want to be able to have the flexibility to move all of our perimeter players around, and he's an excellent fit for that. I think he's by far, I felt the dynamic player that he is with the ball in his hands. So his ability to go get the football and make plays, obviously has some return ability. We just felt like we took the best player on the board, and he'll be very dynamic for our offense.
And Jerry, can you talk about was there any chances to move down to gain some picks? How active were you guys, and what was the dynamic like with with obviously everybody being in different spots tonight, and how that played out?
Well, actually, Lamb prevailed. We had as many as 3 different trades that we could have done, and that were very prudent to have traded. We just didn't want to miss him. And, those trades ultimately are supposed to add another player, and they're supposed to be of value. We couldn't trump him. And boy, he was just there. He's a football player. He's a playmaker. And he just earned it. But we did have a chance to make 3 different trades.
Go to Clarence Hill. Clarence?
2 questions. One, Jerry or Stephen, where did he rate on your board? And 2, why did y'all not do a pre-draft interview with him?
I'll start. I mean, first of all, in our early grading, we just felt like that CeeDee was a top 10 type player, and that we'd never see him. And we had other receivers, as you know, that we did interview that we thought might be down around where we were going to pick. And, it was just one of those good fortune things where, he just fell to us. And so, it was just one of those, worked out in our favor, and we just needed to do that. And truthfully, I think at the end of the day, that's why we didn't interview him.
I agree with Stephen. We didn't think he would be there, and as late as today, when we were going over the different machinations that we might end up with, I think Mike at one time alluded to the fact, he said, of course, if somebody like that were there, that'd tear all this plan up. And,
I don't think we did one mock draft, Jerry, that we used him.
And but I do think Mike today did say, he said, now, if he fell, then I want to recast my vote.
By the way, I know you asked, and I don't think we mind saying, he was the 6th player on our board.
I'll just echo that with all the rehearsals and mock drafts, he never once was there at 17. So, I mean, we didn't expect him to be there. So, very, very blessed to have him.
We will go to Ed Werder.
If each of the 3 of you would mind answering this question, at what point did you start to think that obtaining him was a potential reality? Like, where on the board did you notice that he was falling to a point where you might he might be available to you?
Actually, I thought he was going to go right up until they picked right before us. I thought he'd be the next pick all the way. And I don't think anybody that thought about it. We did have 3 callers, but I think others thought we wouldn't pick a receiver, and so they weren't worried about getting ahead of us to get ahead of him. And so we, I think they might have tried to see if they could get him by us, but that's trying to get in somebody else's head. We knew about 2 picks before we picked that these 3 players plus one other, that any one of those 4 players would be somebody that we would take with this pick, and but we would be open to a trade that would take us down and pick up value. By the time, though, that we saw that he was there, we got a little harder to deal with on those trade calls.
Hey, Mike.
Yes.
Saint, I think they wanted us to answer this question, all of us.
Oh, no, definitely. I think, when Ruggs went to Oakland, I think that was, the first, he may keep coming. So that would, to answer your question, Ed, that's when I first thought, hey, this may have a chance.
I would echo Mike's thoughts. When those receivers, all receivers cleared the top 10 and then Ruggs went, then you started to think, hey, these couple of these receivers that we got rated really high may fall to us.
We will go to Calvin Watkins.
Good evening. I got two questions. Jerry, given what's going on in the world, were you at home today? Where were you when you had to do everything today with the draft?
Well, I'll tell you where I wasn't, and that's what counts. I'll tell you where I wasn't, and that's what counts. The place that you could get fined and lose draft picks, if you were anywhere near our complex, our draft, all of that, you had to be in your room someplace else away from there. And that's where I was during the preparation of this draft. I have been, this last 2 or 3 weeks, I've been in 2 or 3 different locations, and probably will be in as many as 2 different locations, but in my draft room during this draft.
This one for Stephen and Mike. Obviously, stay true to your board, but how much of a discussion did you guys have about stay true to the board or maybe getting a quote-unquote need player at a different position?
No, I'd really like to commend, Jerry and Stephen and Will McClay, and just really staying to the discipline of the whole process. I think it's only natural to talk about, positions where you may feel need, but at the end of the day, the discipline just to stay and take the best player was impressive, especially, just for the first time going through it with these guys.
I'd add on to what Mike said. I just think that's where we've had, why we've had the success we've had in the drafts is that, we've tried to get ourselves in a position going into the draft via free agency that you just don't feel like you have to do something. And, at the end of the day, I think the discussion was outstanding. Of course it comes up, your need, and, one player may represent a more, may scratch an itch a little better as a need than the next guy. But I think at the end of the day, everybody went back to what our mantra has been around the Cowboys the last 10 years is we're putting so much work into our board, whether it's Will and his staff, whether it's Mike and his staff, our medical staff, Jerry, myself, and let's take the best guy. And at the end of the day, CeeDee was, he was a blinking light up there, and a lot of great discussion, including obviously, as Jerry said, we had opportunities with trades too. But when you got a couple players up there, which we had, that really represented what we were wanting to get with the first round pick. You kind of discard the trades and you go get the best player.
All right, we'll now go to Pat Doney.
Guys, this question's for Jerry and for Stephen. Just kind of building on what you were talking about a second ago, Jerry. I'm curious how you guys thought it went tonight, this social distance draft. Was it more challenging than normal? Did it feel the same? How did it go, in your opinion?
David, why don't you start?
I think our biggest thing we did from day one, with the leadership of Jerry, Will, Mike, is we embraced it. I mean, we never blinked. We knew this was probably going to be the path that was going to take place. And, we didn't resist. We just said, hey, this is how this is going to work. We've got an outstanding technology staff that has really made this thing go off almost seamless for us. And I think at the end of the day, I'm not so sure that, some of the things that we've done and that we've done a little differently might not be best practices that we do going forward in terms of the way we went about our scheduling and how we looked at players. And, the focus we were able to get. We were able to have, as I know some of you have seen, great interviews, with our 30 players that we bring in for visits. And I just really felt the fact that we never blinked and embraced it from day one, I think really helped us in terms of our evaluation and getting our board set up the right way.
And I would not only agree with Stephen, I would say that when you can literally live right where your room is, and that be the draft room, as you know or probably know the rules would allow you to be with family if they live with you. We had some exception with also who could be involved in certain rooms if they were the coach or the general manager or the owners. But one of the things that made this very unique, and you saw it all over the league, is that the draft rooms were with and near family. And so I've had the opportunity to be in draft rooms and be near my family because of our isolation policies that we're trying to practice and adhere to. So the entire draft, by and through the first day, including getting CeeDee Lamb, is an experience that I've had in the draft that I never dreamed it could be like today. And we were efficient, we were well informed, we had good time to consider our trades. We nailed it. We nailed our with the evaluation we had. We helped our team, and at the same time, from really, I would say the NFL hierarchy, they had a chance to be near and around parts of their family that they've never before had on a draft day. And this is quite a day. And we all are so aware of the crisis that we're in this country. And we were able to hopefully include our fans in this part of building a team, and that is selecting these players. I got to start off before the draft even started. I was visiting with Jamie Foxx. And Jamie Foxx was right there in my room. And I was talking with him and WR. And we were talking about the draft and what was coming up on the draft. Then I could go right in the room and go right in and sit with Mike and Stephen and sit with Will and talk to our scouts. This is unbelievably unique today. But as Stephen said, if you look at it and looked at it going in, this is a whale of experience. And I really believe the fans that did activate and get involved in what we were doing as a league, I believe they had another perspective of the NFL.
Go to Brianna.
CeeDee obviously has incredible ball skills, but he's also an eager blocker. How do you think that'll benefit him now working with a dual threat like Dak, who's dangerous when he gets outside the pocket?
I think that's a great point. He's a complete player, and I think it really, it plays to his personality, both not only the way he plays with the ball in his hand, but when he's blocking for somebody else. But yes, definitely, I think with the ability to have a mobile quarterback that can both scramble and run, it'll definitely be an asset.
Go to Jeff Kolb.
Hey guys, two questions. First for Jerry and Stephen, kind of piggybacking on Pat's question about how the draft went tonight. Could you bring us inside those moments on the clock, how different this experience felt, not being in the war room together? And then for Mike, with adding a playmaker like CeeDee, what do you think that can do for the other weapons you have on offense?
I'll start off, Stephen, because he mentioned me first, but we really, when I knew, we had a couple of our regional scouts made some additional comments about CeeDee that Will and Coach and Stephen and I hadn't discussed. But then I recently lost a great friend, one of my very best, might have been my best. I played ball with him at Arkansas. He was number 88. His name was Jerry Lamb. He was drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs. We couldn't have won a national championship without him. And he was a wonderful player. And so when this is a little drama from my perspective, when we were all sitting there and had said our piece, and then we said, okay, what's it going to be? I said, in honor of my great friend that just passed this year, we're going to have his namesake come on here and wear old number 88, just like Michael and Dez and those guys. And we've got us a receiver. And let me tell you one thing, if he's got the competing heart of that Jerry Lamb, he'll be bad to the bone.
And to add on to that, I just really feel like, because, again, the biggest thing we did is embrace this. And I just really, it felt like you're together. I mean, you're getting so, after almost a month of this, preparations and working through free agency and, doing all the things we've done, it was, believe it or not, it wasn't that difficult. I think our technology guys did a great job, and we were able to, really understand what was being offered from a trade standpoint. As Jerry mentioned, we had, national scouts really speaking up in terms of the players we were considering. And I just don't think it could have gone any better, even if we were all sitting in the same room. I think we reached the same conclusion and maybe did it even more efficiently than we would have done it if we're all in the same room talking over each other.
And to answer your second question about how CeeDee makes the other players better, I think it's important to always recognize you can't have enough playmakers. And anytime you add a playmaker to your offense, it creates more opportunities for everybody else. So I think he'll be an excellent addition, and just the fact that we'll be able to move him around like we like to with all the receivers gives us the versatility that you always look for.
Jonah, you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Guys, this is for all three of you, and I apologize if it's not necessarily draft related, but it does feel newsworthy tonight. I want to get your reactions to the news about Dak's brother. Have you all talked to him? Is there anything else you can tell us or provide in that regard?
Well, we are so saddened that Dak has lost his brother, and we want him to help him get through this period of time, to avail himself in any way possible, any of the Cowboys or the assets or the comfort of his friends and teammates around him. So just whatever we can do to help him get through this horrible time. When you're young, and Dak is young, his brother was young, death is really, really hard to understand or just think about or live with. And so I have a particular sensitivity when our players or someone has a tragedy. I just want to really, now that's when you forget all the hard stuff, and that's when you want to grab them and hold them.
Jerry said it as good as you can say it. I mean, obviously our prayers are with him and his family, and certainly, you know what Dak means to our organization, and how much we're with him right now.
Yeah, I just want to echo what both Jerry and Stephen said. Just the fact that it's an unbearable time right now, and I just I know all the prayers and thoughts go out to Dak and his family, and just for everybody to respect his privacy.
Michael Gelkin.
My first question was, how does CeeDee fit into your 11 personnel grouping and on special teams? Granted, you haven't had your hands on him yet, and you're not writing in cement today in April. But what do you envision his potential involvement in the slot as a returner?
As soon as we get past having our first team meeting, and then we break up into the offense, we'll get to that. But he'll definitely be out there, as far as that 3 wide receiver package. I mean, it'll be obviously you want to train all your receivers to play as many different positions as possible. Gives you the flexibility, but I think just both the starting point is to be able to play both inside receiver and outside receiver. Just the way he attacks the ball and his ability to play with the ball in his hand. So, he'll be an excellent addition to the 11 personnel groupings.
This second question very well could amount to immaterial, but this is a very unforeseen scenario, as you guys said, for CeeDee available there at number 17. And a lot of people envision this being something of a defensive start to the draft. Was Chason in serious play there, as it seemed from afar?
Yes. He's in our minds. He was extremely was high valued. He has outstanding potential. I've looked for him to have a great career, and I don't mind telling you, it was a heavy, not a heavy, but a serious thought. We talked about it. It was a key point to think about going that direction. All of our group really spoke to it. The facts are we'd been speaking about him relative to other potential defensive players if the decision time should come, if you had a choice on the board. And so, like I say, and I must go ahead and finish it, as much as we thought of him, and we thought a lot of him, CeeDee just took the day.
Go to David Hellman.
Yeah, Stephen, real quick, obviously the goal is to draft the best player available, but having gone offense here on night one, just curious what you think about, the depth of talent there, specifically at pass rusher and defensive back going into Friday.
We still have, we were just talking how fired up we are about tomorrow. I think we've got a nice group of players that very well give us an opportunity to do something on the defensive side of the ball if things fall right for us. But we all know we don't control that, and certainly you work hard to put your board up at all positions, and and tonight's the perfect example of why you do it. Is you're prepared to know where your value is on the board, and but at the same time we do think, and certainly going into this draft, I think we said it early and often that finding a receiver was also one of our priorities. It was I'm sure most people were suspecting it might not come right away, but it was certainly a priority for us, and it was nice to get that one behind us and feel great about it. But we've still got the majority of our draft left, and we're real proud of our board and real proud of the players that are left there, and really think we're going to have some great opportunities tomorrow.
With that being said, I'll say this to Stephen. Do you see yourselves leaning in pretty hard on defense then? I know you guys are going with the best player available approach, but in terms of needs, do you see yourselves hoping to address the cornerback position?
I mean, you always, if things fall right, then that's always a good thing. If you're able to address, some things that are, might be more, really pushing the envelope more than the next guy. So, you hope that happens, but if the opportunity presents itself and it doesn't necessarily fall in line, that's why we do our work in free agency and sign the players that we get. I mean, we went hard after, after our defensive linemen in free agency. We signed a couple corners. So, we're hard at it. And then, I always like to say player acquisition's 365 days a year. And just because you don't necessarily, fill every spot in the draft, there's certainly a lot of time left, whether it's free agency, whether it's trades, to address other issues if you don't happen to fill them. I just think you make your biggest mistakes is when you reach for need.
You guys talked about there were 5 guys that you had there that you were thinking about. Chase on one of them. Can you reveal some of the others that you guys were pretty high on at pick 17?
That's probably not fair to get into that. These are players that are already on other people's teams, and we did have, as the draft unfolded, we really started to, have a big smile on our face because we did realize we were going to get a player that we had rated in the first round with our first round pick, barring a trade that was just too good to pass up. But to start to get into a bunch of individual names is probably not fair for anybody.
Well, and they may still be there.
Exactly.
Go to Pedro Silva.
Yes, gentlemen, I would like to ask you, especially in this case for Coach McCarthy. Coach, if you have to grade your core of receivers right now, especially with Amari, in this case, CeeDee and Michael Gallup, what grade would you give right now for your core receivers looking into this season?
What grade? Are we talking about like A, B, C, D, or?
Yes.
I would grade them high.
I mean, as far as
I would grade them high. I think it's important that you always want to recognize, the guys that have played the most and started and been productive. But, I'm real excited about our young guys. I mean, I'm really, frankly, looking forward to, getting on the field at some point down the line with these guys. But, the fact that we've been able to start the meetings and start the process, and, so I think it's definitely a group that has a lot of depth. I would grade our group very, very high compared to to other teams. But we this is going to be different for our guys too. I mean, we're going to ask them to move around and play different positions, probably more than they have in the past. So I think it's going to help them create more opportunities not only for themselves but the other perimeter players. So just looking forward to getting that process started with them.
Chota.
For Stephen, I was wondering, when did CeeDee Lamb first get on your radar? I know he's played some games at AT&T Stadium, and I was wondering if maybe you would talk to Lincoln Riley about him, or if Lincoln has even reached out to you since you guys made the pick.
Well, I can't ever help but smile a little bit. My time I got to spend with Lincoln mainly because of John Stephen. He went on a recruiting visit up there, and we actually went and watched the game. And I think CeeDee had a couple 100 yards against Oklahoma State. John Stephen and I were talking, sitting there, watching the game, how impressive CeeDee was. And of course, Oklahoma plays a lot of games here on TV because of the location. It's hard not to follow, Oklahoma, Texas, that group of teams, that big rivalry. And so, you've always kind of had an eye on CeeDee and all the success that he's had in big games. So it's been fun watching him. You just never know when you're watching a guy like that he could end up with a star on his helmet. But, Jerry and I have talked. It's been, been really interesting because we've seen so many of these guys live, going to these SEC games, whether it's the Alabama players, the LSU players, the Auburn players. I mean, we got to watch those guys live and firsthand. And, Jerry and I always ask Will and our scouting department to provide us, with our list of players as we go to these games that are A-rated, B-rated, kind of the list of prospects so that we can keep an eye on them when we go to these games, these SEC games. So, it's been fun like that. And certainly you get to see a lot of great football players play live, and it's great to see guys like that.
And Stephen, one other one I was going to ask you real quick is, was there any thought of if you guys didn't take him, he could potentially fall to the Eagles, and then you guys are seeing him twice a year?
Well, I do know that thought crossed my mind when Washington picked Chase Young. I said we're going to get to see that guy a lot. The good news is we've invested a lot in our offensive line, so feel good about getting through that one. But no, it didn't. I mean, obviously, the Eagles are a great organization, a great rivalry, and I know they picked a great local product here in Rieger. So, they're always a handful. At NFC East is always a handful, but at the end of the day, what we were focused on is, where CeeDee Lamb was on our board, just how much we thought about him as a football player, and certainly we're looking at 3 or 4 other really great football players as well, but CeeDee was a blinking light up there at the top.
Russell.
Question is for Coach. Coach, with such a gluttony of talent on offense, how do you balance individual expectations when it comes to stats?
First of all, I think statistics are things that don't always tell the whole story. So I don't think you always just drive your decisions based off of what the statistics tell you. I think they point you in the right direction. But I think what you have to always do, and that's why the NFL was so unique in the competitive level to recreate your football team each and every year, is to create that vision of how the team is going to play to one another. So how's the offense going to play to the defense, and vice versa, and then the influx of special teams and the commitment and what you're trying to accomplish there to create opportunities for potential big plays here, because you have to make big plays to win games. You definitely have to make them to win championships in the National Football League. So I understand. While you're asking the question, we have 10 returning starters on paper, and then you add a dynamic wide receiver and CD in the first round. But the things you need as many good football players as you possibly can on both sides of the ball, and that's why, going to Stephen's comment early on, the 365 days of player acquisition, you keep working. But it's important to, if one side is tilted a little more to the other, you have to play the game a certain way, and that's where you get the consistency, and that's how you're successful in my view.
Christy Scales.
Yeah, my question is for Coach. Mike, because the rookie minicamp and the other offseason interactions that coaches have with rookies is affected by COVID-19, can you tell us what the league is allowing in terms of the work and communication the staff has with the new players? Also, because the rookies aren't going to get the same kind of offseason work as other years, has that in any way affected your player evaluation in terms of intangibles like a player's ability to learn and what their college coaches say about how quickly they pick up concepts as well as their study habits?
Just to answer the later part first, I think the process of evaluating the players has been the same, because obviously their learning ability and all those things are taken into account each and every year, regardless of the situation that we're in. And as far as the rookies and how we will introduce them, that's something we've been working on, actually starting this week, and getting an idea of how the rookie mini camp's going to look and this and that. But none of those things have been finalized yet.
Can you tell us what's allowed, though, in terms of the league parameters?
It's not. It hasn't totally been identified yet. It's something we're working on.
Thank you.
I'm sorry to do this. I know it's getting late and a lot of people are on deadline. We have to go ahead and wrap it up now, and we look forward to talking to all you guys again tomorrow. Good night. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Guys.